There's a town in New Mexico where the median home price is $85,000. The hot springs are free and a spaceport is 26 miles away. Another town in Kansas where a solid 3-bedroom house costs less than a new truck. And one in Missouri where the local winery has been pouring since 1847 and retirees literally walk to wine tastings along the longest rail trail in America. Americans spend their whole lives chasing the dream. Work hard, save up, retire somewhere nice. But somewhere nice usually means somewhere expensive. Florida condo with HOA fees that rival a mortgage. Arizona golf community where the green fees cost more than groceries. A mountain cabin you can't afford to heat. But here's what nobody tells you. There are towns in this country where the cost of living is 25% below the national average. The crime rate is lower than a library's noise level, and the views look like screensavers that haven't been invented yet. Places where your social security check actually covers your life. Where your neighbors bring you pie, because that's just what people do. And where the biggest daily decision is whether to fish in the morning or hike in the afternoon. This isn't a list of dying towns with cheap houses and nothing else. These are 20 thriving, beautiful, genuinely livable small towns spread across every region of the country. Places where people aren't just surviving retirement, they're winning it. Subscribe because this might be the most useful video you watch all year. Let's break it down. If a town raised a 5-star general who became president, has a world-class museum, and sells 3-bedroom houses for under $100,000, someone should probably be talking about it. Consider this conversation. Abilene, Kansas. Population about 6,400. Median home price roughly $113,000. Many solid homes under $100,000. Cost of living sits 25% below the national average. Crime dropped 40% from 2023 to 2024. Your home price to income ratio is just 2.2, which means homeownership here isn't a fantasy. It's a Tuesday. Dwight D. Eisenhower grew up here. His boyhood home still stands on the grounds of the Presidential Library and Museum. Before Ike, this was the end-of-trail destination for Texas cattle drives where Wild Bill Hickok served as town marshal. So the town went from cowboys to a supreme allied commander. That's the range. The Flint Hills stretch in every direction, the last remaining tallgrass prairie ecosystem on Earth. The Smoky Hill River flows along the south side. Downtown has an average commute of 15 minutes because nothing is far from anything. Memorial Health System consistently scores in the highest percentiles for patient satisfaction in Kansas. And yes, there's a Greyhound Hall of Fame. It's exactly what it sounds like. Kansas fully exempts Social Security and all public pensions. The SafeSAR program refunds up to 75% of property taxes for qualifying seniors. Grocery tax was eliminated in 2025. One resident put it simply, very friendly town. The people are open to strangers moving in. Great churches. Help if you need it. Houses are gorgeous. And if you think Kansas is too flat for your taste, the next town has mountains, waterfalls, and a colony of white squirrels. There's a town in North Carolina with 250 waterfalls within a short drive, a summer music festival that draws 50,000 people, and roughly 1,000 genetically unique white squirrels protected by city ordinance. The squirrels have better legal protections than most HOA residents. Brevard sits at 2,200 feet inside 2 major national forests simultaneously, Pisgah and DuPont. Triple Falls appeared in the Hunger Games. Looking Glass Falls is visible from the roadside. Mountain biking in Pisgah is nationally legendary. Forbes named it a top 10 retirement spot. Transylvania Regional Hospital is in town, and Asheville's major medical system is 35 minutes away. Now here's the catch. Brevard's median home price has climbed to around $430,000, up from $218,000 in 2019. It's not the bargain it once was, but rents remain reasonable. The surrounding county offers better deals, and the quality of life per dollar is still extraordinary. North Carolina doesn't tax Social Security. The flat income tax rate is dropping to 3.99% by 2026, and the homestead exemption for seniors excludes $25,000 or 50% of assessed value. The white squirrels reportedly descended from a pair that escaped a carnival truck in 1949. There's an annual White Squirrel Festival featuring a squirrel box derby, and the town is in Transylvania County. Yes, that Transylvania. One resident described it as a blue zone where they hiked through COVID while everyone else was locked down. Their neighbor baked snickerdoodle cookies. And if mountain waterfalls and protective squirrel legislation aren't your thing, the next town has gold in its courthouse walls. Literally. If your town hosted a gold rush 20 years before California, still has gold leaf on the courthouse steeple, and offers a $65,000 retirement income tax deduction, that's not a small town. That's a cheat code. Dahlonega, Georgia. Population about 7,000 and growing. Median home price around $355. Cost of living 10.7% below the national average. Crime runs 67% below the Georgia average. The town square is anchored by the Lumpkin County Courthouse with actual gold in its walls, surrounded by red brick sidewalks, art galleries, cafes, and multiple award-winning wineries. This is Georgia's wine country. Wolf Mountain, Frogtown, and Monteluse are all within a short drive. Georgia's tax situation for retirees is exceptional. Social Security is untaxed. Residents 65 and older get a $65,000 total deduction on all retirement income. No estate or inheritance tax. For a retiree with a pension and Social Security, Georgia might be the best tax deal in the Southeast. The Cherokee word Dahlonega means golden. The phrase "there's gold in them Thar hills" was reportedly first spoken here. You can still pan for gold today. Newlyweds traditionally walk around the historic square 3 times for good luck. And one niche reviewer described the town as a collision of Gilmore Girls and a Hallmark film. Atlanta and Hartsfield-Jackson, the world's busiest airport, are an hour and a half south. Northeast Georgia Medical Center, a top 100 hospital, is 30 minutes away. The town grew 19% last decade. People are figuring this one out, and if Gold Rush history isn't enough charm for you, the next town was literally built by Germans to become the Athens of the West. If your town was founded in 1837 with the explicit mission of becoming the German Athens of the West, and 190 years later it still serves schnitzel and pours wine from an 1847 winery, that's not a town, that's a commitment. Hermann, Missouri. Population about 2,200. Median home price around $220, with many historic homes under $200,000. Cost of living cites 14.4% below the national average. Crime runs 53% below the Missouri state average. Bavarian-style storefronts line East 1st Street. Stonehill Winery, established in 1847, was once the second largest winery in the world before Prohibition. The Katy Trail, the longest rail trail in America at 240 miles, runs right through town. Travel and Leisure named Hermann one of the 20 most beautiful small towns in America. National Geographic called it one of America's best adventure towns. World Atlas crowned it the best small town in Missouri for seniors. And Amtrak's Missouri River Runner connects the town to Kansas City and St. Louis. You can literally take a train to wine country. Missouri fully exempts Social Security since 2024. Public pensions are exempt up to about $47,000. Property tax sits around 0.88% with a senior freeze at 62. And new for 2025, capital gains are 100% deductible from Missouri adjusted gross income. The annual Wurstfest in March features a Wiener Dog Derby. A real train still rolls through town beneath the Golden Courthouse Dome, and the pace of life, as one local business owner described it, lazily strolls through the rolling hills. And if German wine country is too quaint, the next town is the oldest settlement west of the Mississippi, and it just became a national park. There's a town in Missouri where homes cost under $150,000. The hospital has been named one of the best places to work in healthcare 5 times. And the National Park Service just showed up in 2020 because the French colonial architecture is literally irreplaceable. Genevieve, population about 5,000, founded around 1735 by French-Canadian settlers. It contains 3 of only 5 surviving poteaux-en-terre houses in North America, an architectural style linking France, Haiti, and Quebec. The main street features antique shops, wine stores, art galleries, and a 4th Friday art walk from February through November. Genevieve County Memorial Hospital has been called the smallest cancer research facility in the world. It's partnered with Missouri Baptist Hospital and has been recognized nationally for innovative care coordination. For a town of 5,000, St. Louis is just 1 hour north for specialty care. Same Missouri tax advantages as Hermann. Full Social Security exemption, senior property tax freeze, capital gains deduction, and median home prices around $142,000. At that price, your annual property taxes run roughly $700. $700. That's less than some people pay monthly for parking. The town actually relocated entirely after a massive Mississippi River flood in 1785. It has its own river ferry to Illinois, and one niche reviewer captured it perfectly. beautiful scenery, generally very quiet, neighbors are very friendly and always willing to help, and if French colonial charm at Depression-era prices isn't compelling enough, the next town has natural hot springs, a spaceport, and a name that sounds like a dare. If your town was originally called Hot Springs and then renamed itself after a game show in 1950 because the host promised to broadcast from any town brave enough to do it, you're either very confident or very bored. Truth or Consequences was both. Population about 5,500. Median home price roughly $85,000. That's not a down payment, that's the whole house. Cost of living sits 21 to 27% below the national average. Annual property taxes run approximately $535. Crime is 60% below the national average and dropping. The town sits along the Rio Grande at 4,260 feet with Elephant Butte Reservoir, New Mexico's largest lake, just 12 miles north. 10 commercial hot springs bathhouses line the walkable downtown. The natural aquifer produces crystal clear mineral water at 100 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Riverbend Hot Springs offers pools literally on the banks of the Rio Grande. And 26 miles away sits Spaceport America, Virgin Galactic's launch facility, ancient healing waters and space tourism in the same zip code. New Mexico exempts Social Security for most retirees. Property taxes are exceptionally low with a valuation freeze for seniors. No inheritance or estate tax. NBC host Ralph Edwards returned annually for nearly 50 years after the town took his show's name. Downtown sidewalks still bear WPA 1939 stamps from New Deal construction. And one 9-year resident on Niche said it perfectly. Absolutely loved it. Amazing people, not much crime. If you like being outside doing stuff, it's perfect. And if you want that same Southwest magic but with Billy the Kid history, the next town sits at 6,000 feet on the edge of America's first designated wilderness. Your town sits at the foot of one of the largest national forests in America, was home to Billy the Kid, and still costs less than a condo parking spot in San Francisco. Someone miscalculated. And that miscalculation is your gain. Silver City, population about 9,500. Median home price roughly $175,000. Median rent around $525. Cost of living 15 to 25% below the national average. 300 plus days of sunshine with 4 mild seasons at 6,000 feet. The Gila National Forest covers 3.3 million acres. The Gila Wilderness, designated in 1924, was America's first wilderness area, championed by Aldo Leopold. Downtown Bullard Street is walkable and vibrant with art galleries, a food co-op, breweries, and a creative community of painters, poets, and musicians. Western New Mexico University adds cultural programming. Big Ditch Park was once Silver City's main street until an 1895 flood carved a 55-foot deep arroyo through the center of town. Nature literally split the town in half, and residents just built a park around it. That's the energy here. One 47-year resident described it as a recreation haven with cowboys, hippies, old and young, and 3.3 million acres of national forest. That's the kind of diversity that actually matters. And if the Southwest isn't calling your name, the next town sits where the Columbia River meets the Pacific Ocean, and it's the oldest American settlement west of the Rockies. Was the filming location for The Goonies, Kindergarten Cop, and Free Willy has a Victorian hillside neighborhood nicknamed Mini San Francisco and charges zero sales tax on anything. The tourism board doesn't even need to try. Astoria, Oregon, population about 10,000. Founded in 1811, it's the oldest city in Oregon and the first permanent American settlement west of the Rockies. Median home price around $430, though it's been declining 21% year over year. The cost of living runs slightly above average, but Oregon's zero sales tax offsets daily expenses significantly. The town sits at the dramatic confluence of the Columbia River and Pacific Ocean. Sea lions have colonized the East Mooring Basin Pier. Fort George Brewery operates out of a converted 1920s garage. A vintage riverfront trolley runs along the waterfront. The Astoria Column, a 125-foot tower built in 1926, has a spiral frieze of regional history with 164 steps to the top. The Columbia River Bar is called the Graveyard of the Pacific. Over 2,000 shipwrecks. The Goonies house is real and visitable, and one resident captured it perfectly. The short answer is yes, Astoria is an incredible place to live, full of natural beauty, friendly locals, and unbelievable clam chowder. Portland is 2 hours south, Seaside is 15 minutes, Cannon Beach is 30, and if you want Oregon affordability with wine country instead of coastline, the next town delivers exactly that. Your town has 30 plus wineries, Oregon's third highest waterfall, and median rent 55% below the national average. You're either in a simulation or you're in Roseburg, population about 23,000, median home price around $305 and declining, median rent roughly $703, cost of living 10% below the national average. The Umpqua River Valley wraps the town in rolling vineyard-covered hills, dense forests, and a river renowned for world-class fly fishing. Crater Lake National Park is 80 miles east. Hillcrest Vineyard, established in 1961, is Oregon's oldest estate winery and predates the famous Willamette Valley scene. The Great Umpqua Food Trail connects 70 culinary stops. Wildlife Safari in nearby Winston is one of the few drive-through animal parks in the country, and the town was once known as the timber capital of the nation. Oregon's zero sales tax applies here too, and one resident summed it up. Why choose between culture and outdoors when you can have both? And if you want mountains and tax freedom with none of the state income tax either, the next town is in a state that charges zero on everything. Your town has been named the safest city in the entire state, charges zero income tax on anything, and has a river that literally vanishes into a cave and reappears a quarter-mile away with more water and larger trout. You might be living inside a nature documentary. Lander, Wyoming. Population about 7,500. Median home price around $312. Cost of living 7.6% below the national average. Safe-wise, ranked it the #1 safest city in Wyoming, and Wyoming charges zero income tax on everything. Social Security, pensions, 401k, capital gains, all untaxed. No estate tax, no inheritance tax. The Wind River Range provides the backdrop. Peaks over 13,000 feet, alpine lakes, and glaciers. Sinks Canyon State Park offers that geological wonder where the Popo Agie River disappears into a cave and reappears downstream with more volume. NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School, is headquartered here, infusing global connections into a tiny mountain town. And Lander has the lowest wind velocity of any Wyoming city, which in Wyoming is basically a superpower. One resident called it the hidden gem of Wyoming. Growing up here has been a gift. The mountains, the sunsets, the small town kindness. And if Wyoming is too remote for your taste, the next town puts you 35 minutes from a major airport, 22 minutes from Hot Springs, and 56 miles from Yellowstone. Anthony Bourdain called the Murray Hotel his favorite on the planet. Jeff Bridges keeps coming back. Over 200 working artists live in Park County, and the town sits 56 miles from Yellowstone with 4 mountain ranges visible from Main Street. If that doesn't sell you, nothing will. Livingston, Montana. Population about 8,600. It's the priciest pick on this list at around $519 median, but it's still nearly 40% cheaper than neighboring Bozeman at $830. Montana has no sales tax. The Yellowstone River blue ribbon fly fishing water cuts through town. Paradise Valley stretches south to the national park. Chico Hot Springs is 22 minutes away. Downtown looks like a Western film set that collided with a creative revival. 15 plus galleries, European bakeries, farm-to-table restaurants, legendary dive bars. A river runs through it was filmed here. Pine Creek Lodge hosts concerts under the pines. And Bozeman Yellowstone International Airport is just 25 minutes away with many direct flights. This was the original gateway to Yellowstone. Tourists took the train from Livingston to Gardner from 1883 to 1915. The town has always done its own thing, and that's exactly why people love it. And if Montana is too much mountain for your budget, the next town offers New England charm at prices that would make a Vermont realtor weep. If your town has a National Historic Landmark art gallery from 1871 with a 10-foot Albert Bierstadt painting, a planetarium, a mountain where people build chapels for their dogs, and home prices 40% below the state average, you're either dreaming or you're in St. Johnsbury. Population about 7,300, median home price around $247, well below Vermont's $403 average. The St. Johnsbury Athenaeum M is one of America's oldest art galleries in its original form. The Fairbanks Museum and Planetarium houses natural history collections with daily weather broadcasts. Dog Mountain, a 150-acre hilltop shrine, features a handmade dog chapel where visitors leave photos of beloved pets. The town sits at the entrance to Vermont's Northeast Kingdom, widely considered the most scenic and unspoiled region in all of New England. Fall foliage here is consistently rated among North America's best. Kingdom Trails nearby in East Burke is a world-class mountain biking network. National Geographic Adventure named it Best Small Town. Yankee Magazine selected it as a top place to live in New England. Vermont doesn't tax Social Security for most filers, and the proximity to New Hampshire enables tax-free shopping across the river. And if you want that tax-free shopping as your primary residence instead, the next town delivers exactly that. If your town holds a Guinness World Record for 112 feet of candy, has a Main Street vacancy rate of 2%, and charges zero income tax on anything, you've basically found the retirement equivalent of winning the lottery. Littleton, New Hampshire. Population about 6,000. Median home price around $190,000. Cost of living 14% below the New Hampshire average. Violent crime runs 72 to 91% below national average. And here's the knockout punch. New Hampshire has no income tax. Fully eliminated in 2025. No sales tax, no estate tax, no inheritance tax. Chudder's Candy Store holds that Guinness record. Schilling Beer Company serves wood-fired pizza on the river. The Opera House has been restored to its 100-year-old glory, and the town sits in the White Mountains, one of the most dramatic mountain landscapes east of the Rockies. Franconia Notch, the Flume Gorge, and Cannon Mountain are within 30 minutes. Reader's Digest called it one of the nicest places in America. Outside Magazine named it a top 10 dream town, and the Senior Center runs a program pairing high school students with older adults. Local merchants remember your name after just a few visits. That's not a tourism pitch, that's a community. And if New England charm sounds perfect, but you want it with live oaks and Spanish moss instead of maple trees, the next town delivers a Gulf Coast version. Your town lives under centuries-old live oaks draped in Spanish moss, makes donuts from mashed potatoes, and charges zero state tax on any retirement income. You're not just retiring, you're upgrading. Ocean Springs, Mississippi, population about 18,500, median home price around $268, cost of living 9% below the national average. Mississippi has no state tax on retirement income whatsoever. Social Security, pensions, 401k, IRA distributions, all exempt. Downtown Washington Avenue is walkable. Art galleries line every block. Government Street Grocery hosts live music. Tato Nut Donut Shop makes donuts from actual mashed potatoes, and they're legendary. The Peter Anderson Arts and Crafts Festival draws over 150,000 visitors with 400+ artist booths. Golf carts are a primary mode of transportation. Walter Anderson, the eccentric local artist, would row alone to Horn Island for weeks to paint. His hidden murals were discovered only after his death. The town rebuilt stronger after Hurricane Katrina, and residents describe the community spirit that emerged as unbreakable. Biloxi is 5 to 10 minutes away. New Orleans is an hour and a half, and one California transplant said it perfectly. We never imagined we'd find our perfect home in Ocean Springs. The best decision we ever made. And if you want Gulf Coast living with even more old world character, the next town is where air conditioning was literally invented. Your town has 900 historic buildings on the National Register, an inn that's been open since 1907, and the guy who invented the cold air process that became modern air conditioning did it right here in 1850. That's not a retirement town, that's a living museum with great seafood. Apalachicola, Florida. Population about 2,400, median home price around $242. Florida has no state income tax, zero on everything. The homestead exemption removes $50,000 from assessed value. No estate or inheritance tax. The entire downtown is walkable on foot or golf cart. Chain stores simply don't exist. Shrimp boats still come in. St. George Island, ranked the number 4 beach in America by Dr. Beach, is 20 minutes away. St. Vincent National Wildlife Refuge, accessible only by boat, has 9 miles of empty beaches and a red wolf breeding program. Dr. John Gorey invented the ice machine here in 1850. A replica sits in his museum. The town was once the third busiest port on the Gulf of Mexico, behind only New Orleans and Mobile. The oyster fishery, shut down for years, was reopened by FWC in 2025. Locals warn visitors with a smile, beware. You may find yourself wanting to move here. And if Florida's heat isn't your thing, the next town has a presidential library, a great steakhouse, and sits on the banks of a river that Lewis and Clark navigated. If your town is the original capital of Dakota Territory, sits on a Lewis and Clark campsite, and has a 144-bed regional hospital with robotic-assisted spine surgery, you're getting big city healthcare at small-town prices with zero state income tax. That's not a compromise, that's a strategy. Yankton, South Dakota. Population about 15,400. Median home price around $198,000. Cost of living 17 to 25% below the national average. South Dakota has no state income tax. None on anything. Lewis and Clark Lake stretches 25 miles with 90 miles of shoreline. The Meridian Bridge lets you literally walk to Nebraska. And Avra Sacred Heart Hospital is the sleeper strength. 144 beds, 24/7 emergency, surgery, oncology, cardiac cath lab, and a new $16 million cancer institute under construction for a town of 15,000. That's extraordinary. Mount Marty University adds young energy. The chalk bluffs along the Missouri River are dramatic, and one 20-year resident on Niche captured it cleanly. Yankton is a great community. I do not plan on living anywhere else. And if you want those same zero tax advantages with mountains instead of prairie, we already covered Lander, Wyoming. But if you want something completely different, the next town might be the best comeback story in New England. Your town has magnificent 19th century brick mills being converted into artist studios, waterfalls cascading through downtown, and the highest percentage of French speakers of any city in the United States. You're not just affordable, you're interesting. Lewiston, Maine, population about 37,000, median home price around $252, well below the national median of $484. Maine does not tax Social Security. A $25,000 annual pension income deduction is available. 2 hospitals in town give retirees exceptional healthcare access. And Portland, Maine's largest city with its international jetport and world-class dining, is just 35 minutes south. Bates College, the first coeducational college in New England and an underground railroad stop, provides a free museum of art, lectures, and concerts. Art Walk LA runs final Fridays from May through September. Thorncrag Bird Sanctuary covers 450 acres, and about 15% of the population speaks fluent French, a legacy of Quebecois mill workers. Forbes named Lewiston among the top 25 places to retire in America. The multicultural energy, Twin City identity with Auburn, and proximity to Portland make it the most connected, diverse, and amenity-rich affordable option in northern New England. And if you want a town that's been perfecting retirement living for decades with 9 golf courses and 200 social clubs, the next one has it literally figured out. Your town is the only city in America with a national park entirely inside its limits, where 47 thermal springs have been flowing at exactly 147 degrees for over 4,000 years, and Al Capone, Babe Ruth, and multiple presidents all took baths here. That's not a retirement destination, that's a flex. Hot Springs, Arkansas, population around 38,000, median home price roughly $201 to $245, cost of living 16.5% below the national average. Bathhouse Row, a National Historic Landmark, features 8 ornate early 1900s bathhouses. Bill Clinton grew up here. 5 diamond lakes surround the area for fishing and boating. The Ouachita National Forest is at the doorstep, and nearly 24 art galleries line Central Avenue. For retirees wanting community scale, Hot Springs Village, 15 miles north, is the largest gated community in America. 26,000 acres, 9 golf courses, 171 holes, 11 lakes, 30 miles of trails, 200 plus social clubs. Arkansas doesn't tax Social Security or military retirement. Property taxes are among the lowest in the nation at about 0.53%. Income tax rates are dropping to 2 to 3.9% by 2026. A Texas transplant described it as providing serenity and pace unavailable in DFW. And if you want Appalachian charm with a storied theater and a legendary trail, the next town has both. If your town has been welcoming visitors since the 1700s, sits at 2,100 feet in the Blue Ridge, and has a theater where Depression-era patrons literally paid admission with ham. You don't need a marketing budget. You need a bigger parking lot. Abingdon, Virginia. Population about 8,300. Median home price around $275. Cost of living 13% below the national average. Violent crime at 2.4 per thousand, which is very low. The Virginia Creeper Trail, one of America's most celebrated rail trails, runs 35 miles through mountains and valleys. The Barter Theater, the longest-running professional theater in America, launched the careers of Gregory Peck and Ernest Borgnine. 4 genuine seasons. Summers in the 70s and 80s. Spectacular fall foliage. Johnston Memorial Hospital is in town, with the Tri-Cities Metro 30 to 45 minutes away for specialty care. Over 23% of residents are already 65 plus, meaning the infrastructure is tuned for retirees. Virginia doesn't tax Social Security. Residents 65 and older get a $12,000 age deduction. No estate tax. Effective property tax rate runs about 0.71%. One niche reviewer called it one of the nicest places to live in Virginia and probably the entirety of the USA. Another noted that you'll see it all within 6 months. For retirees, that's not a limitation, that's the whole point. And the number one spot on this list goes to the town where everything we've been talking about, affordability, beauty, safety, community, healthcare, and charm, converges in one impossible package. How does a town of 2,200 people get named one of the 20 most beautiful small towns in America by Travel and Leisure, one of America's best adventure towns by National Geographic, and the best small town in Missouri for seniors by World Atlas, while keeping home prices under $220 and crime 53% below the state average? Hermann has the answer, and unlike most answers on this channel, you're going to like it. Founded in 1837 by the German Settlement Society of Philadelphia, nearly 2 centuries later, the mission to build a German Athens of the West has quietly succeeded. Stonehill Winery has been pouring since 1847. The Katy Trail, the longest rail trail in America, runs right through town. Amtrak connects you to Kansas City and St. Louis. The Missouri River curves below a Golden Dome courthouse, while a real train rolls underneath. Missouri fully exempts Social Security. Public pensions are exempt up to $47,000. Capital gains are 100% deductible. Property tax runs about 0.88% with a senior freeze at 62. No estate or inheritance tax. Hermann Area District Hospital handles local care. St. Louis is 80 miles east for everything else. Festivals run nearly year-round. Mayfest, Oktoberfest, Wurstfest with its Wiener Dog Derby. 200 plus annual events in a town of 2,200. That's roughly 1 event per 11 people. A local business owner described the pace of life as lazily strolling through the rolling hills. A city data forum user noted that Hermann keeps popping back up. If you lived in town, you could walk to a lot of places, and one retiree captured it simply: "I wish I'd moved here sooner." And here's the thing, nobody tells you about retiring in a small town. The biggest savings isn't the housing, it's the stress you stop paying for. No traffic, no 2-hour commute, no $7 coffees, no keeping up with neighbors who lease German SUVs they can't afford. Just mornings that belong to you, afternoons that stretch, and evenings where the biggest decision is porch or patio. 9 states charge 0 income tax. 41 states don't tax Social Security. And across this country, there are towns where the cost of living is 25% below average. The neighbors bring pie, the mountains are real, and the only rush hour is geese crossing the road. The window won't stay open forever. Truth or consequences at 85 grand. Abilene at 113. St. Genevieve at 142. Those numbers are climbing, but right now, today, the American small town is still the best deal in the country, and most people are still too busy paying big city rent to notice.